Welcome to Haverfield. We were only on the road for about 15 minutes before I found myself drifting off to sleep. It was a starless night outside, and the hum of the engine provided a soothing white noise for me. The passenger's seat wasn't the most comfortable place, but I managed to contort myself into the perfect position. A few minutes of this, it would have been impossible to wake me up. Oh, that can't be right. I cracked one of my eyes as I felt the car begin to slow. Dylan was nervously tapping on the steering wheel while muttering to himself. I pushed myself upright and saw we were pulling over to the side of the road. "What's up?" I asked as Dylan put the car in park and stepped outside. With a sigh, I followed him out. The air outside was chilly and a light mist had begun to roll in. I shivered slightly and could feel goosebumps already starting to line my arm. Our surroundings were pitch black, with the only light coming from the car headlights and a lamp perched upon a small wooden sign about 50 feet behind us. "Welcome to Haverfield." Dylan stood on the side of the road, furiously staring at the sign. I put my arm around him and felt him wince a little. He was still sore from earlier. "Seriously, what's up?" I asked again. "We passed this sign like 5 minutes ago," he said, his voice caught between confusion and frustration. I gave him a dubious look. "You sure about that? We haven't been driving that long." "No way," he said, shaking his head. "I definitely remember passing this sign earlier. I was actually thinking how nice it would be if I never saw it again." "Maybe you were just thinking about it and got confused. Confusion is a pretty common symptom," I said, while gently tapping at my temple. "I don't have a concussion, Preston, and we definitely passed that sign already, I swear to God." Okay, I believe you. Maybe we accidentally turned back somewhere. All these woods look the same, it's impossible to tell where we're going. Tell you what, I can start driving for the night." "You sure? It looks like you were about ready to doze off back there." I waved my hand dismissively. "I'll be fine, we've got plenty of energy drinks." Dylan took one last look at the sign before heaving a sigh and walking back to the passenger seat of the car. I hopped into the driver's side before cracking open one of the cans of soda we had rolling around in the back. It tasted like sugary lawn trimmings, but I just grimaced and put it in the cup holder. I pulled us back onto the road and we were on our way again. The mist continued to roll across the road as trees provided a thick cover around us. I felt like we were passing through a tunnel in a dream. "With the roads looking like this, I can understand if you got a little confused. I can barely tell where we are," I said, trying to spark up a conversation. "For the last time, I'm not concussed. You're making a big fuss over nothing," Dylan replied. "You didn't see how hard your head hit the pavement. I thought they actually killed you." Dylan snorted. "Zach and Ryan couldn't kill me if they had a sledgehammer. Fucking pieces of shit." "Really?" I said, before reaching out and slapping Dylan on the stomach. He yelped a little before recoiling away. "Oh yeah, real invincible there, Achilles." "They caught me off guard, all right? They better hope I never see them again." I rolled my eyes a little bit at this. An awkward silence overtook the car, and I struggled to think of anything else to talk about. "Have you heard back from your friends yet?" I asked. "Yeah, they already have a bed made up for us." "And they're cool with us just crashing with them like this?" "Yeah, at least for a little while. I mean, how long do you actually think we'll be staying?" "I don't know," I admitted. "I mean, I'll be 18 in 3 months or so, and you turn a month after that. We can find work somewhere, pay them back for rent and food. Hell, we can maybe find our own place after a few months." "So you were serious about never coming back?" "Fuck yeah, I was. Why the hell would I ever want to come back here? Why would you ever want to come back?" "I don't know," Dylan said. "I guess it just doesn't really feel real, you know? Running away to Philly to start a new life." I couldn't help myself by this point. Fuck Haverfield. What's there for us? Sam and Jill spreading more fake shit about us. Zach and Ryan beating you half to death. They might actually kill you next time. You want to stay for our parents? My dad hasn't been home for 3 days, and your mom didn't even look up when you came home looking like this. Fuck everyone in that backward-ass Hickville." Dylan could only shrug in response to my rant. Maybe I was coming off as dramatic, but it was hard to care at this point. 17 years of putting up with the hateful, shitty, defeatist attitude of everyone in that town had finally broken the dam. I knew Dylan agreed with me, even if it was hard for him to admit it. That place was a black hole, and we were better off leaving. Still, it felt wrong leaving the conversation on such an angry note. "Hey, Dylan, we're making the right call here. Once we're in Philly, we'll figure everything out. I just know it, okay?" His face was a mix of hope and fear, looking like he desperately wanted to believe everything I was telling him. "I trust you, Preston." "I love you," I said, trying to keep the mood happy. "I love you too," Dylan replied, not missing a beat. Content, he rolled over in his seat to try and relax, while I shifted my full attention to the road. The narrow forest route stretched out before us, hidden behind the thick fog rolling in. Despite the bad condition, I had no trouble navigating. It wasn't particularly hard. We could go for miles down one of these paths and not hit a turn. I just had to follow the bends and twists of the road and hope it spit me out on the highway soon enough. I found myself growing hypnotized by the path ahead. The gentle mist rolling across the road, the hum of the engine, and the endless rows of trees stretching out into the night. A small turn here, a small turn there. It was so repetitive, so mindless, it felt like I was falling asleep all over again. I reached down to take another sip of my energy drink when I saw something that broke the monotony. A small light came into view up ahead. Was another car coming? No, it was just one light, and it was on the wrong side of the road. I started focusing heavily on it, trying to figure out what it could be. As the car came closer, I could tell that the light was being obscured, that there was something standing between us and it. A sign. I shook my head. We were probably already in the next town over, or it was just a small roadside business. Absolutely nothing to be concerned about. As our car sped by, I almost didn't bother checking the rearview mirror. Almost. But then, curiosity got the better of me, and I glanced back. "Welcome to Haverfield." It was now my turn to pull the car over and wake Dylan up. He seemed startled, immediately sitting upright. "What's up? What's going on?" "Check behind us." He twisted backwards and I could see his eyes bulge. "No fucking way." Dylan was out of the car before I could even respond, marching quickly towards the sign. I turned off the engine and sprinted after him. Even up close, mist obscured the edges of the sign, but the light cut straight through the center. Sure as hell, it was the same sign we'd been staring at earlier. "How the hell is this happening?" Dylan asked furiously. I was panting from running behind him. "I don't know. I didn't take any turns. I don't even think there were any turns. The road just looped back this way." "Well, what the fuck? You've driven out this way before, haven't you?" "Yeah, a few times. It's supposed to spit us out right on 237. I've got no idea what's going on." Dylan continued to stand in front of the sign, frustrated beyond words. I could only stand there helpless, mouth ajar, no idea what to say. It didn't make sense. How did we keep ending up here? Leaves rustled in the forest near us, snapping us both back into reality. Almost instinctively, I reached for Dylan's hand as we turned to see what was making the noise. The fog and darkness obscured our vision, making it impossible to tell what was happening. As the noise slowly crept closer and closer, Dylan's grip on my hand grew tighter and I squeezed back. Finally, about 100 feet from us, an outline appeared. It was a person. "Who the fuck?" I heard Dylan whisper under his breath. "Does anyone even live out this way?" I asked. Dylan shook his head. "No, these woods stretch on for miles. I've never seen a house out this way." I tried to think as the person's footsteps grew louder and louder. They were getting close enough where I could almost make out their features. Why weren't they waving or saying anything? There's no way they couldn't see us. They were just marching towards us, not gesturing, not saying a word. I nudged at Dylan. "Hey, I think we should get going." He nodded quickly, already turning for the car. I followed suit, finding myself genuinely running to keep up with him. The footsteps were still behind us, creeping forward at the same pace. They felt louder now, more imposing. Dylan ducked into the passenger side as I threw open the driver's door. Ignition, gear shift, accelerator, the car went off like a bat out of hell. I found myself breathing heavily, my heart pounding furiously in my chest. Dylan looked like he was almost hyperventilating next to me. We sped down the road faster than before, going well over whatever the speed limit could have been on that road. After I had a moment to collect myself, I spoke. "What the hell was that?" "I don't know, man," Dylan said, grabbing at his forehead. "I don't even know. With the sign and the guy in the woods, that was weird, right?" "It's creepy as shit. What was he doing out there? Why didn't he wave or signal or something? Why do we keep passing that same sign?" "It's just... fuck. I've got no clue. Does anyone know we were leaving?" "I didn't tell anyone. Did you?" "No, of course not." "Well, then I don't know. Christ. It's fine. We're probably just overreacting. Maybe it's just some dude who thought we were having car troubles." "Yeah, but what was he doing out in the woods?" Dylan asked. I had no answer. "Who cares? I'm just gonna take the next turn we see, okay? We'll find our way to the highway after that." Dylan shot me a dubious look. "I thought you said you didn't see any turns." "Then I'll find a back road or something. Christ, I just need to think. I need to... "Hey," Dylan spoke calmly, grabbing my arm. "It'll be okay. We just need to keep going forward and something'll turn up." I turned to face him for just a second. His eyes, his face, his dumb messed up hair. The rest of the world faded away as I stared into... Shit! I barely reacted fast enough. There was a person in the road. I twisted the wheel and slammed the brakes. The squealing of tires filled the air. The car twisted and began to skid on its side. The hood narrowly missed plowing into the figure as the car jerked to a stop. My head swam as I tried to take everything in. I turned to see the silhouette of a man standing in the center of the road, backlit intensely by a faraway lamp. Behind him, I could see the sign. "Welcome to Haverfield." In an instant, the world went silent as the car engine cut out, leaving the headlights to quietly illuminate the woods in front of us. Furiously, I twisted the key, only to be met with a screeching whine and no roar. It was dead. It took Dylan smacking me on the arm for me to realize he was shouting. I don't even remember what was being said. All I recall was the figure, slowly sauntering towards the car. They weren't particularly tall, not even 6 feet. As they stepped into the headlights, details slowly became clearer. They were wearing clothes that looked absolutely disgusting, like they hadn't been washed in years. Dark brown pants with a thick red flannel jacket on top, both adorned with all manner of holes and stains. Even from our distance, I could tell that the flesh on their hands was unnaturally pallid. Their skin clung tightly to the bones, like all excess fat and muscle had simply dissolved away. Soon, they were standing in full view, their face completely illuminated. Their skin was the same, stretched and aged terribly, with liver spots covering every inch. Thin wisps of long white hair dangled from their head and chin. A large chunk of flesh was missing from their left cheek, exposing the rotting teeth and gums underneath. Their eyes were sunken and black, no emotion managing to shine through. Despite all this age and decay, I could still somehow recognize who I was looking at. It was my grandfather standing before us, a man whose funeral I had attended almost 6 years ago. He slammed his fist down violently on the hood of the car. Dylan and I both screamed and pushed back into our seats. "Out!" The corpse roared at us, shaking the frame of the car. I was speechless initially, struggling to think of a rational response to what was happening. There was none. This was impossible, plain and simple. Maybe it was this impossibility that kept me calm, that allowed me to react in the way I did. Dylan was still yelling indistinctly, fear exploding from his every expression. I cupped his face gently and stared deep into his eyes before speaking. I don't know what is happening. I don't know why any of this is happening. But this definitely has something to do with me. I know this is crazy, but that is my grandpa out there. I'd recognize him anywhere. I'm gonna go out there and distract him. When you see your chance, just run, okay? Dylan shook his head furiously, and I knew better than to give him a choice. I knew he'd do something brave and stupid, and I wasn't going to let that happen. It was my turn to do something brave and stupid. Without warning, I opened the door to the car and stepped out to confront the shambling corpse. In a flash, he was on me, grabbing at my arm tightly. Despite the age, his fingers felt like steel, and I found myself immediately recoiling and yelping. The stench of rot flowed from him freely as his gnarled hand gripped tighter around me. I struggled in a panic, now completely aware that I had absolutely no plan. The full absurdity and terror of the situation somehow clicked on in my mind as I began to scream uncontrollably. Dylan wheeled out of the passenger seat, lunging quickly at my grandfather. Without looking, the corpse batted him away, knocking him back almost 10 feet. Dylan landed roughly on the ground, the air clearly knocked out of him. My mind flashed back to Dylan's head smashing against the pavement as Zach and Ryan kicked him viciously. Incensed, I began to beat heavily against his chest with my free hand, feeling like I was pounding a brick wall. "Enough!" He bellowed so loud, I could feel my bones shake. I immediately stopped all motion, and I could see Dylan staring wide-eyed up at him from the ground. The entire night grew still around us as if everything was waiting in anticipation of what was to come. "You may go," my grandfather rasped, pointing a bony finger at Dylan. "But you must stay," he said, now turning his attention to me. Neither of us reacted immediately. My mouth hung open, but no words came. It was Dylan that spoke first. "What?" "You may go," the corpse repeated at Dylan, "but Preston must stay." Again, silence hung in the air for an agonizingly long moment. "Go!" I spoke quickly, not even thinking. "What?" Dylan asked again. "Just keep going. Get to Philly. I'll meet you there." "What the fuck? No! I'm not leaving you here. Not with him." I ignored him and turned to my grandfather. "Can Dylan leave town if I'm not in the car?" "Yes," he rasped. "Dylan, get out of here. I'll meet up with you later. Trust me." "Fuck no, I'm not leaving you. I'll stay here if I need to." "Dylan, if you stay, things will just be worse. What happens if you get hit in the head again? What if you don't wake up from that? You can't stay here." "I won't leave you. What if he..." "He's not gonna do shit," I said, again looking at my grandfather. "If he wanted to hurt me, he'd be doing it right now. It's not like we can stop him either way. Just get to your friend's place, and I'll meet you there. I promise." Dylan stared deep into my eyes. I could see every single thought of his flicker across his face. His confusion, his frustration, his fear. He was struggling to make a decision that seemed like it had already been made for us. Finally, steely resolve graced his face. "You promise?" he asked. "I promise." He gave my grandfather one final look of pure venom before turning to me again. "If you're not in Philly in 3 days, I'm coming back for you." There was no point in arguing. "Of course. I love you, Dylan." "I love you, Preston." Without another word, Dylan got into the front seat of the car and turned the key. The engine started without an issue. Giving me one final pleading look, he shifted the car into gear and sped off down the road. I watched as the headlights slowly faded away, before going around a curve and disappearing completely. It was now just my grandfather and me, standing alone in the center of the road. I violently ripped my hand away from him. "What is this? What's been happening to us?" "You cannot leave this town." He spoke flatly, his face never changing its expression. "I've been out of this town plenty of times before this." Never for good. The words hung in the air as I tried desperately to decipher their meaning. It could tell that I was leaving for good? It knew my intentions? What even was the "it" I was referring to? What's causing this? It isn't for me to say. Then why? Why is this happening? It isn't for me to say. Then what can you fucking say? You look a lot like my grandfather, but you don't sound like him. That man would never shut the fuck up. His face twitched momentarily, as if his mouth was trying to curl into a grin. It quickly retracted into its resting position, before he spoke again. I can say, you were born in this town. You will live your life in this town, and you will die in this town. That is all you need to know. I'd had it by this point. Fuck you! I'm getting out of this town, one way or another. You or whatever is causing this can't stop me. His face again contorted like it was trying to form an emotion, but simply could not hold it. Try then. But know this. I've been dead for 6 years now, and even I haven't been able to leave. He stepped away from me, slowly inching back towards the sign. A gust of wind picked up behind us, and I saw dust begin to fly off of his body. No, not dust. His limbs were slowly fading out of existence as the corners of his face quickly crumbled away. In less than 5 seconds, the man had completely disintegrated in front of me. I was again left confused and dumbfounded, now standing by myself in the center of a deserted back road with a single welcoming sign providing light. I'm not sure if the full gravity of what had happened had completely sunken in. It all felt like too much of a dream for that. But it was real. I was completely aware of this fact. I must have stood there for at least 5 minutes, trying to figure out what to do. The answer was obvious, for the moment at least. With a defeated sigh, I began to walk, right past the same, all too familiar welcoming sign I had passed so many times before. I made a silent vow to myself that night, that this would be the last time I ever passed this sign again.